Hello. Good evening. Welcome to the War Room. Tonight, I'm late. Tonight, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Tonight, I'm saying, fuck it, we're doing it live. Because I didn't even have time to write out the social media post correctly. And, there's a reason for that. Don't worry, I will explain it to you. Just give me a minute, because I'm reading a card that I got. Okay, so, reason I'm late. First of all, I had to go to the doctor, because, and this is something I don't do very often. I can say never have I ever broken a bone to the point where I had to go and get it set. However, I broke my arm today. Stress fracture. Pretty bad one. This morning at work, I was helping the warehouse girl, and she asked me to pick up a 47-pound box, which, for me, a guy my size, not that big a deal. But I wasn't quite awake yet, and I was a little loopy. My allergy meds kind of turned me into a zombie. And even though I drink a pint and a half of coffee in the morning, it didn't have an effect on me yet. So anyway, I picked up this box and it slipped out of my hands. And in my own, reactionary stupidity, I reach out and try to grab the box before it hits the ground. And I hyperextend my wrist. And I hear this really strange popping noise in my forearm. But I catch the box and I pick it up and I put it on this little cart thing that she asked me to do. And I didn't think there was, nothing happened yet. I just heard this funny noise. And then I reached down and I picked up the next box, which was also 47 pounds. And when I lifted it, I felt this really nasty pain in my forearm. Like, it was this dull, bruising ache that went from my elbow all the way to the tip of my middle finger. And I looked at her and I'm like, that's not right. But I managed to put the box on the cart, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. I can't pick up another one. And I'm reaching over, and I squeeze my forearm, and I can feel like... For those of you who are mechanically inclined, if you've ever had a bad tie rod end in your steering, or if you've ever had a bad ball joint, and you lift up your car on a jack, and you grab the wheel, and you kind of shake it, and you can hear that dunk, 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 where it has that just little bit of play in it, I was squeezing the bone in my forearm, and I could feel it going dunk, 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 and I'm like, that ain't good. So I told my coworkers I shouldn't be lifting anything. I think something's wrong with my arm. I was like, try to take it easy on me today. So then they proceeded to make me lift heavy fucking things all day. I managed to survive and not make it worse, but on the way home, I stopped to my local doctor, and he took a look at it, and he squeezed it, and he was like, that's not right. And then he did a quick little x-ray, and he goes, oh. He says, if it was anybody else, this would be a really nasty break. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, you must drink a shit ton of milk. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you got some really thick bones. But he goes, if you look here, there's this fracture that goes from your elbow halfway down your ulna. So, for those of you who don't know, your forearm has two bones in it. The radius, which is the bone that rides across the top of your arm towards your index finger. And your ulna, which is the smaller trailing bone that goes down the back of your elbow towards your pinky. That's the one I broke. It's a hairline fracture from my elbow all the way down. And that slack feeling was the bone actually kind of moving around in its own crack. So anyway, he told me just keep doing what I do with the milk thing, because I usually eat a bowl of cereal every night before I go to bed, and I only drink whole milk because everything else is just watered down piss. And he was like, just keep doing that, try not to lift anything for the next couple of days. He's like, you'll be fine. He's the same guy who used to take a look at me after boxing matches and spars and things like that. He's seen the kind of damage I've taken, and he knows what I'm capable of. So he was like, just keep doing what you're doing. Try not to lift anything. Um, Thankfully, everything heavy that had to be moved in my house this week is already gone, including that monster fucking water heater, which he suspects that something may have happened to my arm that at the beginning of last week when I did that, and he was like, whatever happened today just exacerbated it, made it worse. But uh, there's always a silver lining to my day, and Daddy got an RPK. That's the worst kept secret. I said I wasn't gonna say a damn thing about it, but I just can't contain my excitement. I got an RPK. It's on the way. I'm in Central Time. I'm in Texas, for those of you who don't know. And I heard a rumor that Palmetto State Armory updates their website every day at 4 o'clock p.m. So I checked at 3 o'clock p.m. on the dot, my time. And the website loaded really slow. And I'm like, well, that's not right. And then I thought, well, maybe it's just not working. Maybe they don't have it. And I saw the picture of the RPK load, and then instead of it saying notify me when this is in stock with a big blue button, there was a bright red button. It said add to cart, and I'm like, what? Smash that button. So, yeah, I could have had it yesterday. My wire transfer didn't go through in time. They'd sold out for the day. I got home from work. I was pissed. Now I've got all this money in my account that I had moved over. This morning it was in there. And I'm like, well, I'm flush with cash, and I got nothing to spend it on. So then I checked it today, and bam, it was there. So I ordered it immediately. So yeah, 4 months this year, 4 AKs this year. Not bad for a guy who said he wasn't buying any guns this year. God help me. If you would take into
Going
account...
for your record, are you?
I've already broken it. Fiscally, I've broken it like 3 times over.
Yeah, but I mean, numbers-wise.
Numbers-wise, I'm not even close. I mean, what was that, 2018 or something? I bought like 10 guns in a month. No,
Yeah,
this time it was quality over quantity, I think, because 2 snake guns and 4 AKs. I could have bought a fucking Barrett, dude. Anyway. Do I want 1 Barrett or do I want 2 snake guns and 4 AKs? I can't go wrong either way. And wait till you guys see the break I bought for it. Holy shit. I think Mikhail Knightstrikesky wants to join. Should I put him in? I said I wanted to get through this quickly.
No. Did he end his show early?
He's here. Evening.
Hey.
He's Mikhail Knightstrikesky. Alright, so I don't know if you heard the intro, but I got the RPK.
I heard. I was listening. I was listening in the background. I just
Nice.
jumped in here because I'm glad you got it. Probably,
Nice.
even though I told you yesterday when it was thought.
The money didn't get to my account in time. It's okay. I checked it on the dot, and I got it, so we're good.
I don't have money for another AK, but I sold an AR.
Well, Scott and I were talking about things I want to do, so I guess I'll tell this story. Why not? My plan with this RPK was to go insane. See, my goal, for those of you who don't know, I bought the entire sober Spetsnaz uniform. The BDUs, the winter jacket, the heavy winter pants with the suspenders. I got all of it. I got the beret with the brass pin in it. I've got the BDU cap. Like, I was so happy because I've wanted that for years. I finally got it all, and now being Russian is terrible in the eyes of the world. So
what we need to do is we need to get good with the Ukrainian farmer and see if they'll sell us one of those APCs cheap. So that way you can just walk out the APC.
Well, on the plus side, what I ended up finding today was the Berkut patches, which is the Ukrainian Spetsnaz patches, which is the Golden Eagles. Strangely enough, SovietArmyStuff.com sells those. So I ordered the entire Berkut set, and I'm going to put it on my Russian sobered uniform because they use similar uniforms. So it's like I'm going to have that blue and black and white and gray urban camo, but it's going to have all the Romanian patches on it. And then what I was planning on doing this year was I was going to take my coworker George to Kalash Bash this year,
Yeah.
and I was going to carry my RPK, and I was going to put all the Zenitco stuff on it, and then I was going to carry my KP9 on the single point sling across my back while wearing that whole outfit. And then I was going to let George carry my my GF4.
Well, there's Kalash Bash, and then there's also Red October.
I know, but Clash Bash is only like 2 hours from me.
Mm.
So anyway, I was looking at the, I think it's called the Sport 5U, which is the upper and lower fore-end set from Zenitco, which is extended. Huh? Oh yeah, I can see it. I can see it. It'll straighten out in a minute. But anyway, I was going to get the Sport 5U set up for the upper-lower handguard, and then I was going to buy the folding, cheek-rising, 5-way adjustable stock from them. And then originally I was thinking about getting their top cover, but I changed my mind. I want to get the KUSA one because this has the scope mount, the side mount, so I want to use it. So I'll get that, and then probably just use a Hogue Tamer grip because I like those. And then, it'd be all Zenit out, right? Anyway, I priced that out today. And apparently, the ruble's doing quite well because the last time I Zenit out my KP9, I got the whole setup for like $399 or $400 to do the RPK. Just the upper and lower handguard and the stock is $1,000. I was like, ouch.
Well, you got to remember, you're getting the longer slides.
Yeah.
You're getting the longer handguards and that stuff.
Yeah. But that, I'm going to have to piecemeal that out. I don't know if I'm going to be able to swing that in time for Clash Bash, but we'll see.
Oh, if you want to go to that, get a ticket now.
Yeah.
Because they're selling out fast.
Yeah. So I'm kind of wanting to do that because Daddy wants to win a PSL, like Jim Burgess did. That bastard, that magnificent bastard. He won one of those last year. He was in a shooting contest. If I remember the story right, he was in a shooting contest. He tied with somebody. So the people who ran this said, "Well, you tied with this guy, so the only right thing to do is to give one to each of you." I was like, what? So they gave away 2. Okay. Anyway, we have... What? Oh. Here. We have a bit of a show for you. A bit. And we're going to try to get through it very quickly, because I didn't even have time to type out the stories for you guys.
Did you have dinner?
Huh?
Did you have dinner?
Yes.
Okay.
But I didn't have time to type out like the individual pieces of the stories like I normally do for the social media posts. So, I mean, I'm glad you guys saw it, the ones of you here in the audience, because I know that it was a late start. But, yeah, I didn't have time to do any of that today. Sorry. Kind of broke my arm, so... Anyway. We'll get through these. This will be nice and quick. And I'm going to start with a casualty report. Actually, before I do that, Scroller is updated. And I guess what I'd like to do before I do the stories, I'm going to show you the information panel that I got today. So let me pull this up for you, because this is one of those times where I like to show off the pluses and minuses. Because when you guys see the scroller, you just see the numbers. And if you're not paying attention every day, you're not seeing the differences. But this time today, here's the differences. I'm just going to let that take up the screen like it does. It's okay. But as you can see, in day 65, Ukraine was a bit busy, knocking out 16 tanks and 29 APVs. Now, if you think about it, every time they take out an armored personnel vehicle, that's like 8 to 10 troops gone. Which is why their total soldiers casualty is plus 200 in the last 24 hours because they
Yeah.
knocked out 29 APCs, which means some of their I think a Russian APC doesn't hold as much as a Bradley. So, take it as you will, but about 200 got knocked out today. But that's your plus minus statistics and breakdown. Don't worry, the rest of it will keep scrolling across your screen throughout the rest of the show. I just wanted to show you that because sometimes I have this source give it to me, which is awesome, and you can
They
actually see
took
the
out some
actual.
UAVs and some
Oh
artillery.
yeah, like you can see the actual pluses and minuses, which actually gives you an idea of how successful or slow the day was.
Yeah.
So a pretty good day. Pretty good day. All right, so the first story I've got to you today is actually in an American Casualty Report, strangely enough. Here is a photo of him. This is when he was actually stationed in Japan. But 9:06 a.m. Ukrainian time, this was made official this morning. An American citizen and former Marine, Willie Joseph Cancel, died fighting alongside Ukrainian forces in Ukraine. The man's widow confirmed this morning. She says, "My husband did die in Ukraine. Her name is Brittany Cancel. She's the widow, and her husband was only 22 years old. He went there wanting to help people. He'd always felt that this was his mission in life." Cancel leaves behind his wife and a 7-month-old son. She says, "My husband was very brave and a hero. I did not expect to be a widow at 23 years old, or for our son to be without a father. All I want for him is to come home, and so we can give him a proper burial that he deserves." The Marine veteran signed up to work for a private military contracting company on top of his full-time job as a corrections officer shortly before the war in Ukraine broke out at the end of February. Willie Cancel's mother, a woman by the name of Rebecca Cabrera, she was the one who informed the news of what he was doing, like what his job was and stuff. After the war began, the company asked for contractors to fight in Ukraine, and Cancel agreed to go. Cabrera did not respond to any other requests for comments. Cancel flew into Poland on March 12th and crossed into Ukraine at a point between the 12th and the 13th. Prior to wanting to help the effort in Ukraine, he was a detention officer in Kentucky. He had dreams and aspirations of being a police officer or joining the New York Fire Department. You live in Kentucky. Were you going to take your wife and your child to New York? Whatever.
I would.
I wouldn't.
No.
I'd stay in Kentucky because I've lived in Kentucky. Kentucky is much nicer than New York.
Mm-hmm.
Just about
Actually-
anywhere is nicer than New York.
Naturally, when he found out what was happening in Ukraine, he was eager to volunteer. So, yeah, an American casualty, military American casualty in Ukraine. It did happen. It won't be the first. It certainly won't be the last. I have 2 friends who volunteered, one who actually did live in New York and one who lived in New Jersey. And as far as I'm aware, they're still okay. They're still alive. I haven't heard from them in a couple of days, actually a couple of weeks. And we'll see. We'll see. They both did the same thing. They went to their Ukrainian embassy, and they were on a plane in 48 hours. So, some people can do that. Some people do that, which is amazing.
Huh?
Anyway, a few minutes later, it's now 9:08-ish, and I have this photo, which is a tweet from Dmytro Kuleba. I'm thinking what I wrote is almost the same thing that tweet says, but I'm just going to read mine part because it looks smaller. Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons for the sake of world peace. Dmytro Kuleba, Ukraine's foreign minister, said Friday in a tweet. We have then been knocking on NATO's door, but it never opened. A security vacuum led to Russian aggression. The world now owes Ukraine security, and we ask states to decide which security guarantees they are ready to provide. Now, if you're wondering why he said this, and you haven't been paying attention for the last couple of days, I've been saying this for a while now. Ukraine had a nuclear arsenal. Most of it was left behind by the Russians. I think I want to say it was back in like 2004.
It was the breakup
Yeah,
It's
I think it was like
Ukrainian.
2004 or so. And so they left the weapons behind, which means Ukraine had a nuclear arsenal. If you have a nuclear arsenal, chances are you studied what you had in your inventory so you could either replicate it or maintain it or improve upon it to develop the next generation of said nuclear weapon, right? So this went on for years. Then the Russians decided to annex Crimea. And this happened around the same time that the Ukraine knew this was coming and requested to join NATO. NATO heard this plea and they took the application and they said, okay, we'll consider you for NATO, but you have to disarm your nuclear armament. And Ukraine is like, wait, you want us to get rid of the one deterrent we have from a Russian invasion to join you? And they said, yes, but don't worry. Once you do
Actually-
that, we'll protect you.
It was Bill Clinton that made them give up their nukes.
No, NATO did.
Oh.
He brokered the deal. NATO wanted
He's
it.
He
the
brokered the
default head
deal
of it.
in the 90s, yes.
So anyway, so they disarmed. Then they were vulnerable. NATO never accepted them into their club for 8 years. And because of that, we're here right now where we are today. And we have Jens Stoltenberg yesterday saying that he will fast track Sweden and Finland's application for NATO. But he didn't say a word about Ukraine.
Nope.
Imagine that. What a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's move on. Because I got things to do. So do you. And we started late.
Yep.
2 hours later, 11:08, a 25-year-old man fighting with the International Legion Ukraine. I guess that's the name of the group, International Legion Ukraine. So it's sort of like Lafayette Escadrille, volunteers and stuff, right? Was killed on Tuesday in Mykolaiv in southern Ukraine. This came from a Danish broadcaster Friday. The man's name has yet to be reported, and the Danish government said that it wasn't fully able to confirm the report. It may take time before the details are clarified because war creates extremely difficult conditions. This came from the Foreign Ministry in Copenhagen. Over 100 Danes have joined the fight against Russia. Now, the weird thing about this story is they know the guy's age, they know where he was, they know what city he was operating in, but they still can't confirm he's dead? So is he missing? We'll
Or
find out.
captured, maybe.
I'm sure we'll find out in the next day or two, but I thought that was newsworthy anyway because they took the time to give us enough details. I think what they did is they know who he is. They just don't want to make it official. Not yet. So, moving right along, another hour or so goes by. It's about noon local time, Ukraine. 2 British volunteers have been captured by Russian troops in Ukraine, according to reports. The men were detained near Zaporizhia at the Russian checkpoint on Monday. Another British man, Scott Sibley, was killed while fighting for Ukraine. An American, Willie Joseph Cancel, was also killed while fighting with Ukraine, which his widow confirmed earlier in the day. The volunteers were working independently, but were in touch with the Presidium Network organization. They were reportedly trying to help a Ukrainian family evacuate when they were detained. So that was for the 2 British guys. They were trying to, exfil people. That was in Zaporizhia, which is where the nuclear plants are. It's the freaking hotbed. If you look on the map that I put for today's thumbnail, it's, I wish I could just point to it for you guys. If you look at the arrows that come up from Crimea, and then you see how it branches off and one goes north and one goes east, follow the arrow to the north and it goes right to Zaporizhia, just outside that little red zone. That's the hotbed right now. All right, it has been for quite a while. Oh, and before I go on, good evening, Shady Hill. Good evening, Randy. Sorry, I probably should have did that first. It's just I'm determined to get you guys in and out of here in an hour, like I keep saying I'm going to do, and it always ends up being an hour and a half because I can't shut up. Anyway, moving on. Still about a quarter afternoon, and I will give you this photo. This is a satellite photo of Mariupol and the Azovstal steelworks and industrial complex. I believe the part in question is at the bottom right corner, but don't quote me on that. I think it is, though. Ukrainian President Zelensky's office on Friday said an operation was planned to evacuate civilians sheltering in the Azovstal steel plant, besieged Mariupol's last holdout, according to a report, or as I like to call it, the Alamo of Ukraine. The office didn't give any details on the operation, which it said would occur Friday. Russia has devastated Mariupol, a strategic port city with constant attacks since the start of the invasion, many on civilians. The attack has left the city with little power, water, or food for nearly 2 months. Last week, Russian President Vladimir Putin told his troops that it wasn't necessary to storm the plant and already claimed victory over the city. Still, Ukrainian defenders, along with thousands of civilians and injured service members, remained inside the blockaded plant. On Wednesday, a Mariupol official said that the Russians are continuously trying to storm the plant. Wait a minute, I thought Putin just said that it wasn't necessary, and they already declared victory. WTF. Right? Air attacks on Azovstal have not subsided. No silence, but attempts to storm again and again and again. This came from Petro Andrushenko, an advisor to Mariupol's mayor. I think I said that part before in yesterday's news. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who also met with Zelensky in Kyiv on Thursday, said that efforts were underway to get the plant evacuated. Putin on Tuesday agreed to allow the Red Cross to help with the evacuation, quote, in principle. See, there's a big difference between in principle and in practice. This is, in principle, Putin says that it was unnecessary to storm the plant. Or it wasn't necessary to storm the plant. In practice, he hit it with bunker busters, and he's attacked it every single day since he said that. So now he's saying that the Red Cross is allowed to evacuate in principle, but in practice, they're just going to be bright red targets, aren't they? Russians doing Russian things. Moving on. Let's see. We're going to fast forward about 2 hours, so 2:30-ish local time. And make sure I got a picture or not. No picture on this one. Russian President Vladimir Putin told Indonesian President Joko Widodo that he will attend this year's Group G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia. Last night at 7, I spoke on the phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin, Widodo said in a statement. President Putin expressed his gratitude for the invitation to the G20 summit and said that he would attend. The Indonesian president said that he spoke with Putin about the importance of reaching a peace agreement with Ukrainian leaderships and ending the war immediately. The Southeast Asian nation said that it was ready to provide humanitarian support and assist with the peace process in any way that it can. Putin's invitation to the Inter-Governmental Summit is scheduled for November 20th and appears to have come one day after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's, despite the fact that Ukraine is not a part of the G20. So, think of it this way. Zelensky was invited first. He's not even part of the G20, but it's a symbolic gesture. But then the Russians get invited the day after. Zelensky took to Twitter Wednesday to share that he and Widodo spoke. The pair reportedly discussed food security issues, which officials have repeatedly warned will be a global problem aggravated by Putin's war in Ukraine. Zelensky also said that he thanked Indonesia for its support of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, in particular for a clear position in the UN. Widodo said that his nation is constitutionally barred from providing arms to a foreign nation, but Indonesia has made it clear its position on Russia's deadly invasion and voted alongside 140 other nations at the UN General Assembly to demand Putin withdraw his troops. We held a vote to make a demand. Now let's go get some lunch. Though Indonesia, along with 23 other countries, abstained from a second vote earlier this month that suspended Russia's membership in the Human Rights Council. Yeah. Zelensky thanked Widodo for inviting him to the G20 summit, but has not confirmed whether or not he will attend. G20 summit of leaders from the world's largest economies, including the US, EU, Japan, India, Saudi Arabia, and China, are set to discuss issues relating to global health, increased digitalization of the global economy, climate change, of course, and energy security, an issue that has taken on renewed urgency amid Russia's war in Ukraine. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on Thursday said that President Biden welcomed Zelensky's invitation, but said his position on Moscow was clear. The president has been clear about his view. This shouldn't be business as usual, and that Russia should not be a part of this. Yeah. I want to talk about a scene. I can't play it on screen because it will definitely give us a copyright strike. But there was a movie, and I'm sure almost all of you have seen it, and if not, you've done yourself a disservice, and I encourage you to go watch it. It was called The Fifth Element. It was one of Bruce Willis's most brilliant roles. It was one of Luc Besson's best directed films in his career, so much so that he actually left his wife, who played Plava Laguna, the opera singer, for, oh, what's her name? I keep forgetting her name. Mila Jovovich? Yeah. He left his wife, who was also in the movie, for Mila Jovovich, who is also in the movie. Multipass. Anyway,
she did not even speak English for that movie.
Right, but they also developed a language.
Mm-hmm.
And they spoke it to each other. Because, you know, when she was like the Mono-Chiwan accent, or the Mono-Chiwan language, they made that up, the two of them. And they started speaking to each other in it. So nobody else would understand what was going on. Kind of cool. Anyway, there was a scene in that movie. And it was on the cruise ship. And it was when what were those things called?
Shapeshifters?
The ones that stink.
Oh, mercenaries.
Yeah, I forgot what they're called. What the hell were those things called? I've got the quote. Like, I pulled up the quote, but it didn't say what they were.
The Mondo Shawans?
No, the Mono-Chiwans were the thing that she was. Hang on. I'm sure I'll find it.
He's talking about the mercenaries that Bruce Willis got into the gunfight with.
Yes.
We want to speak to your leader.
Yes. Okay, so Mangalores. So yeah, there's that scene where the Mangalores are holding the captain hostage. And then they were like, you mind if I go negotiate? And they're like, we're sending someone in to negotiate. So like, Bruce Willis walks in with his hand behind his back, just beeline straight towards the leader of the Mangalores, boom, shoots him in the head. Anyone else want to negotiate? Where did he learn to negotiate like that? I wonder.
The president is listening to this and says, I wonder.
All I'm saying is, you invited Zelensky to the G20 the day before you invite Vladimir Putin. And the day that the G20 starts, it's like, hi, welcome to Indonesia and the G20. Let me introduce to you Russian President Vladimir Putin. And everyone's like, yay, with a real nervous clap. Let me introduce to you our special guest, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. What are you doing? Turns around and just walks out of the room. Just saying. Sets a beautiful stage.
Diplomatic immunity.
Just beautiful scene, right? Like, is someone going to stop him if he does that? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. He could put down that Mangalore. Anyway.
That is supposing nobody else does it.
HVS doesn't think Fifth Element was awesome. You know what it is? I think the thing about that movie that I like the most is very, very good use of color. And it was like, there are very few movies in Hollywood that I say this about, but I love a movie that does this. The whole movie from start to finish was a beautifully strung sequence of memorable quotes from beginning to end. Aziz, light! Shit like that, right? Multi-pass, you know? Where do you learn to negotiate like that? Like, it was like, I can give you another example of another movie that's just like that. Down Periscope. Beautiful movie of perfectly strung together quotes. You can remember the whole movie just from the quotes in it. Another one, Full Metal Jacket. The whole first part of the movie. The first half of the movie, Paris Island. The whole movie was just quote after quote after quote after quote. What we got here is a prime example of some Alabama black snake. I knew I had to bring that one up. Sorry. Anyway, I'm just saying, there's very few movies like that.
HVS says it wasn't a great movie. Well, you know, he also hasn't seen Airwolf either.
He hasn't seen what?
Airwolf.
Mm.
You remember Airwolf?
Yeah, I remember Airwolf.
He hadn't seen it.
I forgot the guy's name who played it.
Jan Michael Vincent.
Yes. Who I thought was foreign, but he's actually American.
He's actually dead.
Yeah, he's dead too. No, my favorite thing that I saw Jan Michael Vincent in was The World at War. He was brilliant in that.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you haven't seen The World at War, I think that came out in like 79 or 80. It was one of those Time magazine epic miniseries. It was before HBO did epic miniseries like Band of Brothers and stuff, right? Time magazine did it way before them, and it was incredible. Like that. Oh man, that one. Let's see. The first one was The World at War, and that one even had Robert Mitchum in it. And then it was sequeled by War and Remembrance. And you want to talk about the horrors of the Holocaust personified, you need to watch that. But do yourself a favor and watch the whole thing. Start with World at War, and then move on to War and Remembrance, because it's one goes after the other. It's amazing. I sat down and watched the whole thing. I think it was at the beginning of this year. Like, it's very memorable. Especially what happens to the concentration camps and how they dealt with disposal of the bodies at this one camp. Dude, it'll blow your mind. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. That story was 227. So we're going to fast forward another 2 hours. The day's news is short. Like, it went by pretty quickly today. I don't know if just journalists in general were just, hey, it's Friday, let's just get this shit over with, or if they're really just
Phoning it in.
I just, I check about, realistically, somewhere between 10 to 15 sources. On a really good day, I can check as many as 30, and there's a lot of overlap. Today I checked like 10, and they're all just kind of sparse. Now, I could use the Kyiv Independent, and they're very thorough, very diligent, but the problem is, they will do timeline stories about a Russian soldier stubbed his toe after stepping on a snail. It's just like, okay, you don't have to go that far into it, you know? Robert Mitchum was way too old to do anything by then. No, like 78 or 79, he wasn't that old. Like, I think he was in his, like, late 50s, maybe early 60s by then. Like, he was still like an A-lister type actor. He didn't decline, but he played like an admiral, or it was just before he was an admiral. He got promoted up to admiral by the time War and Remembrance came out. But no, he was still a decent actor. The part where he was too old to do anything was when he did Tombstone. He did the narration for Tombstone, and I think he died shortly after that. But that's all he was there for, was just his voice, because that guy had an iconic voice. That's undeniable. I got one of his very first war movies, like when he was only like 17 or 18 years old. Same face, a lot skinnier, same face, but that voice was exactly the same as it was when he was in Tombstone. Like, it never, ever changed. Another guy that was like that, another actor like that was, hang on, I'm trying to remember his name. Harry Morgan.
Colonel Potter.
Colonel Sherman T. Potter. Yeah. If you've ever seen the movie Strategic Air Command, he was a lot younger back then. That was a movie made in the 50s. I want to say like 53 or 54. That's him, and that's oh god, I'm really having a hard time with names today.
Mm-hmm.
Shit. Jimmy Stewart. And yeah, same guy, real young. Actually, I got another movie with him in it where it was a black and white, where he was probably in his early 20s. Maybe even earlier than that. Same voice. He sounded like an old man in his 20s. Like, that dude he probably didn't get laid very much. Like, especially at the advent of the telephone. And he's calling his first girlfriend in high school, and like the dad is like, "There's some creepy old man asking for our daughter." And he just hangs up. Poor guy. No, that guy had a really good career.
That may have worked in his favor, though.
Maybe. He can always fake him. He could fake that he's from the FBI.
Instead of having a squeaky voice.
Yeah. That's true. I don't know. That's the golden era of Hollywood anyway. That's like when men were men and the grass was tall and the sheep were scared. That kind of thing.
And the Duke was above ground.
Casting a 70-year-old in a romantic lead is silly. He wasn't 70 by then. Damn it, now I have to find out. Let's see. Oh, The Winds of War. Sorry, I got the name wrong. Okay, you're right. He was 65 when that happened. Fine. I relearned a thing today. I guess you're onto something. He was 65. He was 70 in the sequel, though. Fair enough. All right, moving on. Before I make an idiot of myself, even worse. 4:32 p.m. So we're already in the evening hours. Ukraine on Friday is admitting to have suffered serious losses in battles in the country's east, but added that Russia's are colossal. You saw the updates. I showed them to you. The admission comes as the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense tweeted that due to strong Ukrainian resistance, Russian territorial gains have been limited and achieved at significant cost to Russian forces. We have serious losses, but the Russians' losses are much, much bigger. They have colossal losses. This came from Ukrainian presidential advisor Alexei Arestoyevich. Now, what does that sound like? Who does that sound like? We may have losses, but the Russians are much, much bigger. They're big. They're huge. They're colossal losses. Just saying.
It sounds like a decent precedent.
Sounds almost like it.
Yeah.
The UK
Almost.
says the battle over the Donbas region remains Russia's main strategic focus in order to achieve its stated aim of securing control over the Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts regions. Oblasts, I guess, is their version of saying that. Ukraine's military, on its Facebook page, said Russian forces are firing artillery, mortars, and rocket-propelled grenade launchers at its positions in the Donetsk and Tavria regions to prevent the regrouping of troops. Russian occupiers continue to blockade Ukrainian units in Mariupol near the Azovstal steel plant, it added. wait a minute, where is it? Oh, yeah. Ukraine's military also said Friday that Russian forces continue to take measures to restrict the movement and detention of local residents and block humanitarian goods from the territory of Ukraine. In addition, the occupiers are robbing peasants. The military wrote this also on their Facebook page. For example, more than 60 tons of wheat were stolen from an agricultural society in the town of Kamyanka Dniprovska. Hey, I got that right on the first try. Haha! Together with the truck that was carrying it. Well, of course. You're not going to just walk away with 60 tons, are you? No. Moving on. It's about the same time, about 4:30-ish. And this is the man here. The U.S. Embassy in Kyiv announced this week that a bodyguard who took leave from his embassy position died fighting Russian forces in Ukraine. The U.S. Embassy Kyiv is grieving the loss of our dear colleague, who goes by the name of Volodymyr, just like the president, who took leave from his job as an embassy bodyguard to rejoin the army and defend the country. We will never forget his kind spirit, dedication, and bravery. Our deepest condolences go out to his family and friends. The embassy did not release the details surrounding the victim's death or his full name. This almost feels like a human interest story. But I guess they were just kind of dogpiling these on after, it's like, hey, a former U.S. Marine who volunteered to fight for your country died, and then 2 British people died. And they're like, hey, one of our guys died too. Fair enough. I mean, he was an embassy bodyguard, so he does have a link to us. Losses are losses. This shit doesn't make it any better. All right. Let's see. About an hour later. Oh, this is the one where I've got the good picture. Here. There you go. There's some, them guns look an awful lot like some Centurion main battle tanks with the bore evacuators. 5:37 p.m. It's beer o'clock in Ukraine. Or vodka o'clock. I don't know. Let's see. Leave several cases of vodka in plain view at the next town the Russian army is attacking. Pull out, let the Russians drink the vodka, then counter the attack. That sounds like that stupid trap about how to kill a mosquito. You put out a bowl and you fill it with vodka instead of water. You put a stick out there and it falls and what was it? You put out salt and a stick and like the thing. What was it? The mosquito trips over the stick, falls in the salt, and then drowns in the tequila or whatever. I don't remember. Anyway. Some like Rube Goldberg trap instead of just smacking it to death. Anyway. 5:37. Beer clock. Tens of thousands of troops from NATO and its European allies are gearing up for a series of military exercises that the UK is calling one of the largest shared deployments since the Cold War. The exercises, backed by aircraft, tanks, artillery, and armored assault vehicles, will take place in Finland, Poland, North Macedonia, and along the entire Estonian and Latvian border. They will include troops from NATO and the Joint Expeditionary Force, which includes non-NATO members, Finland and Sweden. The security of Europe has never been more important, UK Defense Secretary Ben Wallace said Friday. These exercises will see our troops join forces with allies and partners across NATO and the Joint Expeditionary Force in a show of solidarity and strength in one of the largest shared deployments since the Cold War. British Commander Field Army Lieutenant General Ralph Woodice, W-O-O-D-D-I-S-S-E, Woodice, added that the scale of the deployment, coupled with the professionalism, training, and agility of the British Army, will deter aggression at a scale not seen in Europe this century. Deployments will begin this week in Finland, where troops from the US, Britain, Estonia, and Latvia will participate in Exercise Arrow to improve their ability to work alongside Finnish forces. Also this week, some 4,500 troops will take part in Exercise Swift Response, which will include parachute drops and helicopter-borne assaults in North Macedonia. The operation will include forces from the US, Britain, Albania, France, and Italy. Next month, 18,000 NATO troops, including forces from Britain, France, Denmark, will take place in Exercise Hedgehog along the Estonia-Latvia border. In late May, about 1,000 British soldiers will join troops from 11 other nations for Exercise Defender in Poland. In total, the UK says it will deploy 72 Challenger 2 tanks, 12 AS-90 tracked artillery guns, and 120 Warrior armored fighting vehicles to the exercises. What does this sound like to you? Russia is doing Russian things in Ukraine. Sort of like how Germany had their little Polish vacation, in 1939. They're sort of they have an incursion into one country, right? And the response is every country that borders Russia will be holding military exercises almost simultaneously. It's almost like an entire battlefront is doing exercises at once, just to show the Russians, are you sure you want to poke this bear right now? The only thing
at least
missing...
this time, the Germans will be welcomed by the Polish.
Yes. The only thing missing is naval exercises in the White Sea.
There are naval exercises going to be happening.
Well, yeah, but they're just not announced here. But I'm just saying, like, at the same time. I mean, okay, maybe they're stretched thin. I mean, the UK is going to be pretty busy.
No, I think Norway just welcomed U.S. and British nuclear-powered submarines.
It's fine. Seawolves got to stop and restock.
How does Seawolf get out of the Black Sea?
Very quietly.
With the Turkish permission?
Very quietly. Yeah, they probably have like this thing that looks like a garage door opener, and they just got there and they clicked it. And they just opened like this underwater door that let them go right by. Just a thought. I don't know. I'm just having fun. Anyway, offload all of the tanks you want to get rid of. This isn't the raid on Dieppe. No. For those of you who don't remember that, once upon a time, the British thought they were going to be badasses, and they brought what they thought was their latest, greatest, most modern battle tank, the Churchill 7. They never made it off the beach. Every single tank was destroyed on the beach. So they had to retreat. A couple hundred soldiers died. Every piece of artillery was destroyed. They retreated. The Germans, in their newspaper, were so dumbfounded by the situation that they thought that the British were just dropping off their junk to get it out of their inventory. They were like, they couldn't have possibly thought they could win with this. We just thought they were dropping off their junk for our target practice. They didn't realize how many soldiers died. They just saw this stuff exploding. They were like, did they want us to do this? Like when you win so overwhelmingly, you kind of scratch your head and go, did we just... They couldn't possibly be. Where'd they go? Something like that. Anyway. Yeah, you don't want to unload all the tanks you want to get rid of. Every tank has a use, Gabriel. That's the thing. Scott and I were talking about this the other day, and it was like, if the Russians got desperate enough, like really desperate enough, they would put T-34s in theater. I wouldn't doubt it at all. Because if you think about... You have to think about how you would use it, right? So, like, imagine if you have... Let's say you have 10 T-34 tanks. Let's give them, like, the slightly modern one. Or the slightly modern-er one. Not the 75. The T-34-85. The one with the 85mm gun. That was the one that the Russians actually designed as a response to take on the Tiger tank. They knew that they couldn't outgun it, but they put the biggest gun that they had at the time on that tank to harass it, and if you hit it in the right spot, it was effective. So what they did was is they would have this battle formation of 7 to 10 T-34 tanks to sort of encircle and confuse a Tiger crew. And then they would just defeat you by sheer numbers and pummel you with the 85s. Because the Germans had the 88. Fast forward to today, okay? Obviously, a Leopard 2A7, first of all, they probably have some form of radar built into the thing. They would see, oh, there's 30 T-34s out there. And then their gun is so good, their tracking and their targeting computer is so good that they would pick they would pick those things off at a distance that a T-34 couldn't respond. But think of it like this. What if they were in Luhansk, where they sort of already have operational control, and the Ukrainians can't bring to bear any armored units? They would literally just use T-34s as mobile artillery. You would just put soldiers in there to keep them from getting shot by small arms fire, and you would just use high explosive rounds with the 85s to level the city. Like, bring them into Mariupol and just level the city, right? Now, obviously, you would be javelin targets or whatnot, but you see what I'm saying? Like, if you know that you're not going to have very much opposition, they still have a use. They're bulletproof against small arm fire, and you have an artillery launcher essentially. They would find a use for these things. That's why the Russians have like this sort of doctrine. Every Russian tank in the Kubinka Tank Museum is fully operational. They run, they drive, the turrets work, the guns still work. If they ever needed them in a pinch, they would call them up. They would conscript them and mobilize them if they had to. They've never had to in their history yet. Who's to say that they could have a first? I'll tell you what, if they mobilize and they put their Object 279 in theater, I will go there to steal it. I want that thing. Anyway, let's move on. The NATO exercises thing was really cool. Can't wait to hear the results of that. But anyway, let's move on. A couple minutes later, 5:40 Ukrainian time, and I didn't even know this group existed. The International Planned Parenthood Federation. Now, remember, I don't know how you feel about pro-life, pro-choice, or whatever, but I can tell you for a fact that the only thing that Planned Parenthood plans is premeditated murder. Because, well, you'll see here. International Planned Parenthood Federation has sent abortion pills and emergency contraception to Ukraine in response to reports of rape during Russia's invasion. This is one of the first times that I would see this and totally agree with it. I'm like, yeah, okay, that's cool. But there was like this sting in the United States where this news agency called Planned Parenthood clinics in, I think it was 46 states. And all they asked for was, do you provide prenatal care or something like that, right? Every single one in every single state says, no, we don't do that. But I thought you were Planned Parenthood. I'm trying to plan this pregnancy. And they were like, yeah, we don't do that. And they're like, well, what do you do? Well, we help plan the termination of your pregnancy. No thanks. Thank you for your time. And they hung up. It was like a sting. It was like a hit piece on the news. It was almost like, I think it was 46 states. They all said the same thing. So when I read this, I'm like, yeah, it's just more of the same. Anyway, we know there's a significant demand from our partners who are overwhelmed with the number of survivors presenting for services. This came from Carolyn Hickson, the regional director of the IPPF European Network. We do not need data to tell us that this is happening. We know that in ordinary life, violence against women is endemic in Ukraine, she added. So the most important thing for us is to act to care right now. To act to care? So you're admitting you don't care and you're just acting? And to make sure that the medical services and psychosocial services are there to support these women. That's word salad. Anyway, I don't necessarily disagree with this because, rape is a part of war. I think there's very little to dispute that. Very little. It's just a part of war. You have a bunch of amped up, lonely soldiers, and they're going to take their aggressions or frustrations or their carnal desires out on the first thing that they can get their hands on. It's the shitty part of war. So, yeah, abortion pills, emergency contraception, all that. I can't say I disagree with it. I really can't. Anyway, they're there and they're doing it now. They're bringing this to bear in case they need them. Only thing is most of the women that get raped in Ukraine are murdered horribly. I think we covered that in the first like the second or third week that we did this show. We were talking about stories, eyewitness accounts of Russian soldiers raping the women in front of their children and then burning them alive. It's like, Russians doing Russian things. Anyway, let's move on. About an hour later, I do believe I have a picture for this right there. That's actually a really good photo. Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, announced Friday that journalist Vera Hyrik has died after a Russian missile strike on Thursday hit the residential building where she was living in Kyiv. We are deeply saddened by the death of our Ukrainian service staffer Vera Hyrik in Kyiv overnight. President Jamie Fly said this in a statement. We have lost a dear colleague who will be remembered for her professionalism and dedication to our mission. Kyiv Mayor Vitaly Klitschko on Friday confirmed that one person was killed in the attack. At least 10 others were injured, this was cited by Ukraine's emergency services. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman said that Moscow had used, quote, high-precision, long-range weaponry to destroy production buildings at a defense factory in the Ukrainian capital. It was not immediately clear whether the factory was actually hit. The strike also occurred shortly after Ukrainian President Zelensky met with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in Kyiv. They aimed for a radio station. They hit a residential building. They killed a civilian. And then they said that they actually attacked production buildings. A factory. There's your picture. Does that look like a factory to you? I don't think so. Moving on. An hour later, so it's dusk. It's 7:42 Ukrainian time. European Union countries next week are likely to approve a phased embargo on Russian oil, dealing a significant economic blow to Moscow over its invasion in Ukraine. The newspaper, the New York Times, that is, citing EU officials and diplomats involved in discussions, reported that ambassadors will meet next Wednesday to go over the finalized proposal, and the expectation is that they will approve the measures by the end of next week. When this all started, the ruble went to shit. If there was ever a time to buy something from Ivan the Bear Tactical or Zenit Co., that was the time. Since then, and I've probably said this for 3 days now, Vladimir Putin decided that anything that was being sold out of Russia, energy-wise, had to be paid in the Russian ruble. Not only did that stabilize the ruble, but it actually accelerated it beyond its 52-week high. So today, when I went to Zenit Co.'s website, my order now costs $1,000 US, because the ruble is stronger than it ever was. Damn it. Anyway, they still think that having an embargo on Russian oil is going to stop them. Europeans will stop buying Russian oil. Maybe they'll even stop buying Russian natural gas. But India will buy it because they already have. China will buy it because they're allies. Now, they might undercut Russia and buy it for pennies on the dollar, but China will just tell the Russians, hey, take it or leave it. You got any other buyers? I don't think so. So anyway, there's that. I hope it works. I'm not holding my breath. Embargoes don't stop the bullets from flying either, just like sanctions don't. Otherwise, that map would be a lot wider and a lot less redder than it is today. Moving on. We're going to fast forward one more hour. And let's see. I do have this photo for you here. I think, is that plum furniture, Scott? Looks kind of brown to me, but I don't know. It might be plum furniture. It'll pop
There's
up.
some variation on plum.
It'll pop up if
Every
you're viewing it
brand's
on
got a
YouTube.
little bit different
It's
plum.
pretty nice looking. And I can't tell if it's a 74. Wait, no, I can tell. That's not a 74 because the curve of the magazine's steep. Right? That's how you can really tell at a distance, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
how much, like how curved the magazine is. I don't know. I'm still learning these things. Anyway, 8:42 p.m. So dusk. Ukrainian defense officials said that Friday that Russia is using an ammunition depot in the Moldovan breakaway region of Transnistria to smuggle arms across its borders. Transnistria, which borders the Odessa region in Ukraine, has become a new focal point in Russian President Vladimir Putin's war as he looks not only to take eastern and southern Ukraine, but is threatened to come for Moldova next. 30 years ago, the Russian Federation occupied the territory known as Transnistria. Every year, there are mobilization exercises with a task force of Russian troops stationed in this area. This is from Vadim Skibitsky, representative of Ukraine's main intelligence directorate of the Defense Ministry. That's a really long title. Skibitsky said Russian troops train with local separatist forces on defensive and counteroffensive operations using ammunition stored in a warehouse in the village of Kolbazna, which shares a border with Ukraine's Odessa region. Part of the ammunition is used for combat training. Part, according to military intelligence, is for smuggling, Skibitsky said. Ukraine's defense ministry warned Friday that recent actions from Russia show that it's looking to use Transnistria as a springboard for aggression, to attack Ukraine from another direction, and to potentially hit Moldova. The ministry announced earlier this week that Russian-backed separatist forces in Transnistria are recruiting men for their ranks, a move that preceded 2 alleged terrorist attacks in the region this week. Ukrainian and Moldovan... Where'd it go? Sorry. Ukrainian and some Moldovan officials have accused Moscow of being behind the attacks to provide a pretext for the deployment of Russian forces under the guise of a peacekeeping mission, a similar tack that Russia took in Ukraine. I think they call that false flag operation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Russia has maintained a peacekeeping force in the Transnistria region since 1992, when a peace agreement was brokered between the Moldovan government and regional officials. We are monitoring the situation in Transnistria, Skibitsky said Friday, noting that there is now a serious struggle between Moldovan officials and special services of the Russian Federation. The terrorist acts committed on the territory of Transnistria were aimed at forcing the Transnistrian leadership to agree to expand the presence of Russian troops. The main goal is to keep the region completely under Moscow's control, as it has been trying to do for the past 30 years. Sidebar. If you know where the warehouse is, and if you know that it's a token group of Russian-backed separatists, why haven't you sent in saboteurs? Why haven't you used simple civilian drones with incendiary devices to torch the warehouse? Then they'll have a reason to call it a terrorist attack, but at least you'll wipe out the very thing that they're protecting. You take away their ability to conduct war in your country. Before this war is over, you will speak Russian fluently, which will be Putin's excuse to attack, protecting Russian-speaking people. Ola Vistov Pikoye, HVS. Just saying. Anyway. Great. I'm probably on a list. They're going to be like,
You're
oh, shit.
already on a list.
They're like, shit, he said that way too well. Put him on a list. Anyway. What I said, by the way, if you were wondering, is just let it be. Anyway, 8:48 p.m. Ukraine. Kyiv City Council urged locals Friday to conserve fuel for the country's military by taking public transit. Kyiv is urged not to travel by private vehicles, if possible, in order to ensure the need for fuel for the military as a matter of priority. So, I guess... Well, it added that residents are asked to remember the needs of the army and our defenders, and if possible, to use public transport. Rationing has begun. You would think that this should have started... This is what, day 65? This should have started 45 days ago. I don't know. It's almost as if the world thought that the Russians were going to take over in 3 days. The Ukrainians thought that they were only going to hold out for maybe a couple of weeks. So I guess nobody planned on needing to ration fuel. Here we are at day 65, and they're finally starting to consider that. Probably should have started earlier. Anyway, moving on. About another hour goes by. It is 9:48, so it's dark. British non-profit Presidium Network said 2 men, both civilians, remained in Russian military custody after trying to cross a checkpoint. Dominic Byrne, the organization's co-founder, said that the men had been trying to help evacuate one woman. 2 men arrested and detained, trying to rescue one woman. On Wednesday evening, I got a call and messages from contacts of theirs back in England saying that they are missing, and we believe we know where they are, and that they have been taken by the Russians, Byrne told reporters. The Foreign Office told Sky News that it is doing it all it can to support and identify these 2 people. They know who it is, they just don't want to make their names public yet. Security reasons, right? They don't want to put people into a panic. Maybe the families, whatever. Okay, and the last story I have for you today, which, here we go, hour and 15, it looks like we're going to make it to today. This came at 10 minutes to 7 my time, which is about the time I got home from the doctor. 1:50 a.m. Saturday, day 66, Ukrainian time. So, I will start all the stories tomorrow, post this story. And this is actually a post-facto story. A spokesman for Ukrainian President Zelensky confirmed a new mass grave had been found in the area around Kyiv on Friday. The president said that 900 bodies had been found in the area, but the spokesperson clarified that the number referred to the number of dead found so far around the capital, and authorities are still working to determine the total number of civilians killed during Russia's assault. Here's the problem. They found another mass grave weeks ago that had about 900 people in it. They had a statistic of, I think it was about 2,800 civilians dead so far since this all kicked off. And now they just basically added another, 33% on top of that? So, yeah. We said this before, the aggressor will say one number, the defender will say another number, and the truth is somewhere in the middle. Now the truth is starting to lean towards what the defenders were accusing the aggressors of doing, because they're finding these bodies, because they're constantly trying to bury them, to hide everything, and probably the stink and the disease and all that. It's a double purpose thing. So anyway, that's all the stories I have for you today. HVS says I need to let the panelists talk, so if you guys have anything you want to add or that you found today, feel free to share.
No, I only in something yesterday. That was it.
See? This is why I do this, HVS. Because I already know the answer. Anyway, Let me check the. Let me see if there were any last updates real quick. And it appears that there's one, and it's I don't really believe what they're saying here. Like it seems a little too presumptuous. But I'll read it to you anyway. This news broke 40 minutes ago. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said during his nightly address that his country continues to see success after 65 days of war with Russia. We are beating the occupiers in all directions wherever they are trying to advance, he said Friday evening. The situation in the Kharkiv region is tough, but our military, our intelligence have important tactical success. The war is not without its losses, as both military units and civilians alike are facing Russian bombings. Russia wants to make this area uninhabitable, Zelensky said of the Donbas region. Therefore, the defense of our land, the protection of our people, is literally a struggle for life. All right, I would agree with that. I would not say that you're winning in all directions, but I do understand why he's doing that, because his job as the nation's leader is to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not to encourage his people, it's to keep his people from losing morale. So he has to be like basically a cheerleader of sorts. He has to keep their morale up. He has to be encouraging. He has to be a leader, essentially. I wonder what that's like, because we haven't had one in this country for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it has been 1 hour and 16 minutes, and I know Night Strike is going to say it, but I'm going to... Okay, he's not going to say it. I'm going to play this. I'm not going to play that. I'm going to play this. Because I didn't set the playlist up right. Because I was in such a rush. I broke my arm. Give me a pass, will ya? Anyway.
You're supposed to say something else first.
I broke my freaking arm. Anyway.
No, you're supposed to say Slava Ukrainian.
I haven't gotten to that part yet.
Yeah.
You were jumping the shark, sir.
Well, you know, the shark needs to be jumped because we just had to sit through all of that.
Oh, God damn it.
I fell asleep.
I'm at a loss for words. If you're new to my channel, this is not normally how I end these, but if you're a regular here, thanks for coming and welcome back. Check out my other playlist, see if my other interests are of interest to you. This was the War Room. This was day 65. We will be back tomorrow for day 66. Slava Ukraini, and
Heroyam Slava shall not be infringed.
And good night. Shit.